Something I've been wanting to do on this channel for a while is talk about comics and all the different kinds of, big name franchise comics there are out there. I mean, pretty much all of them got their own runs from, Nightmare on Elm Street to Friday the 13th to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Blair Witch Project even has some. I mean, if it's a popular franchise, it probably has a comic book. And I love comics. I love horror, so it kind of seems like something obviously I would be into. I don't own a ton of comics, that came from popular horror movies, but I do have some. So I'm going to start knocking some of them out here, just talk about them a little bit. Now, this is one that I had not... I don't know if I fully had ever read this or not. But having finally sat down and just read it, all at once, I wasn't really a big fan of this one. It's very surreal. There's a lot of like inner monologue or something from a girl, and it's all like super poetic. It's an interesting spin on Halloween. I'm not saying it's terrible by any means. It just wasn't working for me. Although that was, right? I just, and there are some graphics. It's funny, I had this at the salon that was doing a client. And she picked this up when I walked away to get something. And when I came back, she was looking at it. I want to say she was on something. She was on this page. It was something like this, but I swear it was like, something in here. I'm trying to find the picture. I came in and I looked over and I was like, oh, fuck me. It was like super graphic. Because there are some kills in here that are pretty gnarly. And, which, that of course I liked. Shit, I don't know if I can find it, but it's like someone being stabbed, like pretty violently. And I was like, this is a really cool shot. I really like this one. The girl's head has been carved open like a pumpkin, and her face has been lit up from the inside. I thought that was great. Look at the eyes. So there's some cool artwork. I don't know. It really wasn't working for me. Now, this is set in Russellville in the year 2000, which was cool to see Russellville addressed here. From old Charlie Bowles, which I've talked about on many occasions. Like, I always wanted to know what happened with Charlie Bowles. And someone had mentioned in my comments when I said that this comic finally addressed that. Like, what did Charlie Bowles do to his family with the hacksaw? Like, he proceeded to, and then what? Like, we never know. And yes, at the end of this, they do have like a full, like, I don't want to say it's like 7 or 8 pages, maybe more, just a story with a hacksaw in the middle, as you can see, of the story of Charlie Bowles, which I was really excited to read. Oh, maybe it's more like 10 pages. Actually took a minute to read. I was like, oh wow, this is lengthy. I was really excited about it because when I saw that's what it was and I started reading it, I got excited. But honestly, I wasn't a fan of it at all. Like, I'm not sure what they could have done with it, but what they did with it, I don't understand. Like, for some reason, they took it in like this really supernatural way where Charlie Bowles was actually hearing voices from the future of Dr. Loomis and that gravekeeper talking about him. They're looking for, row 18, block 20. And he's also like seeing Michael Myers in visions, and he even meets him, which I actually kind of thought was cool that Charlie Bowles, which in this story, he does kill his family. And it really kind of went for shock value too. Like, when you were reading, it was very descriptive of his mindset and his kills and stuff like that, which I thought was good. Like, and it's just horror. It's dark as shit. I mean, the comic itself has a very grim tone to it, which I liked. But as I said, the very surreal, and then the Charlie Bowles like supernatural stuff. I didn't like the way that Halloween 5 and 6 took the franchise. Like, even though I don't hate those movies, and I was a big fan of Curse of Michael Myers at one point, I still am. Like, I still like it as a film, but I don't like them messing with the mythos like that. Like, he's some evil entity that can't be stopped, and he's a force to be reckoned with because he's possessed by the Curse of Thorn and all this stuff. Like, I just like the man. Like, yes, they took it too far. Shot him 6 times and then, blew him up and shot him through the eyes a couple times. Yes, he'd have to be immortal at that point. Like, that's the only way they could explain away how they're bringing him back for further installments. But I'm just not a fan of making Michael Myers supernatural. And so I'm taking Charlie Bowles and connecting them in a supernatural way. That just felt like furthering the Curse of Thorn kind of storytelling, which that's just not the way I wanted to see Charlie Bowles' story. Like, I was fine with just, if the story was half that length and we found out that he killed his family with a hacksaw and like how he got caught. But as I said, like, the one thing I did like about that story was that him and Michael, because the gravedigger says, or the whatever the hell you want to call him, he does say like about 15 years ago. So that would have been the exact same time as Michael Myers. And if there's a mental health facility in the area, Smith's Grove, and they're both mentally ill, they would both end up at the same area. So I like the idea. I never really honestly thought about that, but I really like the idea that Charlie Bowles and Michael Myers are both incarcerated at Smith's Grove at the same time and would cross paths possibly. I mean, maybe there's a juvenile section of it, and maybe there isn't. And that's actually in the other comic, which I've already started reading, the 3-issue Halloween comic. I'll talk about it when I finish it. I just read issue 1 last night, and it's all about like Michael in Smith's Grove Sanitarium and Dr. Loomis treating him and all that. I'm really enjoying that one. That one's way more my style. It's more straightforward. The more surreal stuff here. I think this will appeal, and I do think this will work really well for certain people. But just as for a Halloween thing, I think if it was disconnected from Halloween, I may have liked it more. But because I kept trying to figure out like what the fuck this had to do with Michael Myers and what the whole point of it was, because the main character here, Lisa, looked like Judith. Like, that was really the only connection that we got to see that made Michael come after her and her friends. So I don't know. And it kind of outright ignores, and that's what's funny about the Charlie Bowles thing and all the spiritual and supernatural connections, is that there is no connection to Halloween 4 through 6. That comic that I was just mentioning, the 1 through the 3-issue thing that I was just mentioning, that takes place after Halloween Curse of Michael Myers. Like, it's Tommy Doyle, and he's trying to write a book on Michael Myers after the events of Curse. So I thought that was pretty cool, that it furthers the story there. But this one, it just kind of outright ignores anything after 2 that I could find, except for in the very end, there's newspaper clippings, and it does address H2O in there. So I know a lot of people consider that like a trilogy. So I think this one agrees. And but yeah, I do like the idea that Charlie Bowles was in the mental hospital with him. I had something in the oven and I could hear the timer going off, and I was like, shit, I thought I could finish this before the damn thing finished. I really thought I was going to do this in like 5 minutes. I should know myself better than that. Anyways, I'm trying to think if there's anything else really I want to talk about with this. I'm curious on what you guys, if anyone's read this, if anyone has this. I've looked this up, and this thing seems to be fairly expensive now. I bought it when it first came out. I'm pretty sure I did read it once upon a time. There's some really cool images. One thing I did like in here was when Michael sees himself as like clown kid, and he like kind of morphs into both. Like Michael looks at himself in the mirror, he sees himself as, you know, the 6-year-old, and then he kind of morphs. Like there's like a combination of the two here. I thought that was kind of cool. I liked that shot. And you know, I don't know. It's graphic, so I dug that. But the connection, like what the purpose was and all, it just seemed like they were stretching to try to connect this to Halloween, you know? Like I feel like this could have been anything and they just could have drawn Michael Myers' face on it, you know? It just wasn't really connecting with me. But the artwork is cool. It's always cool to see Michael Myers. But I just feel like they could have connected it better. Just him randomly coming back. It just wasn't. And it is very grim. I mean, I don't want to give spoilers here or anything. I'm not going to show the end here, but the ending is super grim. The whole thing is. Which I like, but I don't know. Yeah. Anybody will read these? Any comics that you guys dig that you're looking forward to? I know Comixology has a bunch of horror comics like the Hellraiser series and whatnot that are with them. I actually have a Comixology unlimited plan, which is only $5 a month, and they have so many damn comics in there. And as I said, Hellraiser has a ton on there, so I could read tons of those. You guys have any favorites that are like adapted from popular film franchises that I should be looking at? I haven't read a ton. I'm going to do the Blair Witch ones here, even though they only have one issue each, except for the Chronicles, which I got to buy those on eBay if I'm going to read them. They're not too expensive, but I definitely want to check those out. And yeah, let me know if I'm missing, like what I'm missing out on. I have some Nightmare on Elm Street ones. I'll have to look around to see what exactly I have, but I'm going to look. So you guys let me know. All right.